In a recent video, I discussed how I believe it is all of our responsibility to declaim complicity, to shake off the complicity that we've been with which we have been ensnared by our so-called betters, by through some kind of gesture of our own, whatever that might be. And I think it's a different thing for each of us, and I think it's between us and our God to come to terms with what we must do to rid ourselves of complicity in all of the evil that's being done in the world by the most powerful people, those who essentially rule the world. This is discussed in a prior video. I talk about how when the world rulers, the so-called elites, when they commit themselves to these campaigns, they do so in a way that reeks of dishonesty, that reeks of disingenuousness, that reeks of sheer mendacity. And you know, the 19 Arabs with box cutters explanation for 9/11 is just useful shorthand. Anybody who looks at the events of that day with even a little bit of scrutiny knows for certain that it wasn't all due to 19 Arabs armed only with box cutters, but that's the official story. And they stick to it, even with all of the obvious anomalies, all of the obvious problems with that story. They stick to it just for the same reason they stick to the magic bullet theory regarding Kennedy, because they have to find a way in which we are ensnared by our own our inability, or our not knowing any better, or our inability to have recourse to say that we don't know any better, right? When you would know if you look into it just slightly, that this is all bollocks, this is all a disgusting lie, and yet you go along with it anyway, then you're complicit in it. Even if you didn't do anything wrong, you're complicit in it. You know, even if you didn't do anything wrong actively yourself, you are rendered complicit in it by the fact that you're just going along with things. You're just behaving as if their lies are truth. You're just going along in your daily life as if you weren't being ruled by absolute monsters doing absolutely terrible things to the innocent, probably on a daily basis. And so this is what I mean when I say that I feel complicity in it, and that, you know, even for awful things that I would never do, and why I think we're all ensnared in complicity, and why you know, and this is in opposition to those who would say, oh well, they're just laughing at us. You know, they're doing these things. You know, they're telling us about 19 Arabs with box cutters and magic bullets, and you know, terrorist passports falling out of exploding planes onto the sidewalk of New York City. They're telling us these stories just to you know, to mess with us, or to mock us. But I think they tell us these stories to render us complicit in the lies. Okay? And I've talked about this before. Now, what just occurred to me recently, and this isn't a terribly topical thing right now. Maybe I should repost this video later when the whole mad, crazy, rabid, demonic spirit of you should vote, you'd better vote, vote like your life depends on it, you better vote or else you're a bad person, you better vote or you're not a responsible citizen, you better vote, you need to vote. What's wrong with you if you say you're not going to vote? You should be ashamed of yourself. Just kill yourself. This kind of campaign that we hear around every election time, especially presidential election time, and it just seems to get more and more, that chorus, that cacophony, seems to get more and more oppressive, more and more relentless every cycle, every time voting time comes around. Why is that? Now, before I answer that question, let me return to the subject of South Park for a minute. I know in a couple of previous videos, I talked about how I believe ultimately that South Park has been controlled opposition. But they may not have been controlled opposition all along. They might have, at some point, had integrity but been bought off. And I think I think there's no better representation of this than back in 2004, Matt and Trey made an episode of South Park where one of the boys didn't want to vote because voting was like a choice between a big douche and a turd sandwich, typical South Park vulgarity. And he just didn't want to choose either one. He didn't feel like either one was it was in his interest to cast his vote for either one of those. And for taking this stand, I think it was Stan was the member of the gang who took this stand. For doing this, he gets kicked out of the village and ritualistically shamed, and it's brilliant. It's a very much just a scathing critique of this whole idea that if you don't vote, you're a bad person. And of course, later on, as I understand it, in the pandemic special, they start shilling for voting. They say, well, there's a big election coming up, with the implication that you should vote. So that's the difference between South Park 2004 and South Park 2020. Within that 16-year span, somewhere along the way, I submit to you that Matt and Trey went to the dark side. Because if you go back and watch that earlier episode, it really is a brilliant critique of the entire mass conformity, sanctimonious self-righteousness of the one that the sort of person or the sort of force that's pushing for voting and pushing for others to vote. It's not just enough to say, well, I'm going to vote, but if you don't vote, that's fine. You can do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. No, it has to be, if you don't vote, then we're spitting in your face and ritualistically expelling you from our community, as they did to Stan in that episode. Okay, so I'm back on the subject of voting. It just recently struck me. I was watching an old, I guess it's by now the famous video with Russell Brand from a few years ago, where he proudly tells some reporter who's giving him a hard time. He proudly tells him that he's not voting, that he's never voted, and that voting is just basically rendering yourself complicit in this evil and corrupt system. And I don't know whether Russell Brand knew. I know he's a smart guy, insightful person. I have some problems with him, but I generally admire what I have known of him in the manner in which he's spoken out recently, particularly recently. But I don't know whether he knew what a profound statement he was making when he said that. When he said that voting makes you complicit. I think that might be it. That might be the key to understanding why there's such a mad push to get people to vote. Because the more people vote, the more people signify their complicity in the evil system, which has absolutely nothing to do with them or their vote. You know, if they... I'm convinced that they wouldn't allow people to vote if it actually changed anything, if it actually made any kind of difference. You know, they would outlaw it, because they don't want the proles, you know, the great unwashed, the useless eaters. They don't want people like us steering the fate of mankind. That's their job. That's how they see it anyway. But if we take part in their sham elections, if we take part and cast a vote for whoever's side, then we are essentially saying we believe in this system. We declare our loyalty to this system. And this is the same system that empowers, enables pedogate. This is the same system that empowers and enables the bombing of families in the Middle East and elsewhere. This is the same system that enables and empowers monstrous and probably unimaginable evils. So, that system will grind on whether or not we vote for it. But if we vote for it, we indicate our complicity in it. Because what are we saying when we vote? We're saying we believe in the system. We believe that, voting for one side or the other will change the system, or will change it in a way that will lead to these evils that we see happening, ceasing to happen. And so, that must be why it's gotten shriller and shriller and shriller over the course of my lifetime. Why the push to vote, why the demand that everyone vote, whether or not they know anything about anything, whether or not they're informed, that they just have to vote, that even if they're not informed, even if they know absolutely nothing, if they cast a vote, then they should be proud of themselves, and they should get a lollipop for their troubles, and they should get one of those stupid little buttons or stickers that say, "Oh, you voted," and you can wear it around and strut pompously as if you're a big man on campus or something. So again, I don't know if Russell Brand really was taking all of this in when he said what he said, because it brought a lot of scathing rebukes from a lot of people. A lot of people really hated on him for saying it. Or said that he lost all credibility when he said that he had never voted and he didn't intend to ever vote. You know, he lost absolutely all credibility. But that's what they do. That's what they try to do to people who are trying to get out of the complicity in which they've ensnared us. If you try to get out of it, they shame you, and they whip up a lynch mob against you, and they try to make you feel like it's your fault, it's your doing, you've done this. You know, the same way that they try to shame the unvaxxed these days. You're the one. Your selfishness is causing other people to die. It's the same kind of bogus rhetoric. The same shaming rhetoric, the same self-righteous bluster. Absolutely the same. So, a confession: I have voted on many occasions lately, and I voted because I had this sort of superstitious idea there was a time in which I thought, I know my vote makes no difference, and I don't really believe in voting, but for a time it was there had been a couple of times where I had voted for the guy who I thought was the lesser of two evils, and he had won, and that had happened several times. And the times when I refrained from voting, the guy who I thought was the worst of the two evils won. And so I thought to myself, well, you know, maybe I have some kind. I mean, it was absolutely just a superstitious thing. It was like, why not, you know, just see to it that maybe the lesser of two evils will win. And if the lesser of two evils wins, then, you know, it's not going to be great, but at least it won't be as bad. So I got sucked in that way. But in the last election, I saw, you know, more clearly than ever before that your vote doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter anyway, but with that banana republic-like sham of an election, it was obvious they wanted a certain person to win, and they were going to make sure that person won no matter what. And they got what they wanted, of course, because they call the shots, and we don't. But it took that rude awakening for me to see, yeah, this whole voting thing. Well, first of all, my superstitious belief that if I voted for the lesser of two evils, he would win, and if I refrained from voting, that the lesser would lose. That didn't happen. Even if the lesser of two evils did actually win, if things had been fairly counted, that didn't happen in effect. So therefore, it was a throwaway. You know, all voting is a throwaway, but that's what I would say, because no one vote can matter, even if everything is fair. No one vote is going to make a difference. But beyond that, I would say that voting does make a difference in the sense that it renders you complicit again. And I've got more repentance to do now that I rendered myself complicit in this scam of a ritual, this ritualistic assumption of implied complicity, because I took part in it. I've got some some extra repentance to make. And I've got extra repentance to make when I've got less time to make it. So I'm in a bit of a hurry now. Anyway, those are just my thoughts on why they're so doggone insistent and strident and unrelenting in the effort to get people to vote. It's because they want to make us all complicit in their crimes. We should reject that. We should say no fucking way. Those are just my thoughts on the subject. Let me know what you think.